Welcome to Faith Talks, a monthly program on the Generation podcast designed to help young ladies discover greater ways to nurture and exercise their faith in their day-to-day walk with Christ.
Hello, my name is Anna Faith, and welcome to episode 48 of Faith Talks. Well, I am very excited about this episode. It probably will be my favorite one yet because we have a very special guest with us. And yes, you may have guessed who it is. My husband, Jonathan or Boogie Fuller. And I am very, very excited to have him on this episode with me. And you probably will be hearing from him in future episodes. But we are very excited to have you on our podcast. So if you would just share a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about that nickname and where that came from, that would be great.
Yeah, well, this is really neat to be on the podcast today. Anna Faith and I were just talking about it this morning that it's really cool for me to be here because when I started praying about Anna Faith specifically, she didn't have, I was trying to find out as much as I could about her, but she didn't have, social media of any kind. So for me, being 14 hours away, how do I find out about her? So whenever I Googled her, all these Faith Talks episodes popped up and whoa, this is a gold mine. So I'm not sure that I listened to every single one, but I listened to a fair amount of them. So
now we know when we made those comments of guys stalking us, it was actually true.
Yeah, I guess so. So kind of fun to be on here with you today. But yeah, so my name, Jonathan Fuller, and then the nickname Boogie. I'm not totally sure where that came from because I've had that nickname since I was a baby. But what I've been told is that all of my brothers, we all had B nicknames. So it was Buddy, Bubba, and then when I was born, Boogie. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, that nickname has stuck for my entire life. Both of my brothers, they lost their nicknames, but everyone calls me Boogie, including the third graders that I teach. Well, they call me Mr. Boogie. But it was really funny. This week was our first week teaching, and when Anna Faith walked in the class, they all started calling her Mrs. Boogie.
Yes, so I think I have a new nickname now. New identity. So, and yes, Boogie's name is not just a nickname. If you're around him in any setting at church, school, that is his name. So you got to learn it. So, all right, well, we'll go ahead and get started today. And just so grateful for what the Lord has done, even just thinking of this last month in the wedding that we had December 20th and just the honeymoon and just all that God has done. We're so thankful just for this next stage and excited. You'll probably be hearing from Boogie more, so it would be really exciting to just grow together as we continue in what God has for us. So today we just wanted to take a little time and just share, just talk about one specific way that we can continue our walk of faith. And many of our episodes up to this point have been really focused on faith, looking ahead, and just what God is going to do in the future and how we can grow in our faith. And today we just want to take a step back and focus on growing our faith by looking backward. And Boogie's going to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, Anna Faith and I kind of have had a theme verse for our relationship back to when we started courting, and it was 1 Samuel 12:24, which says, "Only fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider how great things he hath done for you." And so the first part of that verse is the command, fear the Lord, serve him in truth with all your heart, with everything in you. And it's the initial command, what's the motivation for the command? Well, the last phrase, for consider or remember how great things he hath done for you. Think about all of what God has done for you in your lives, individually, in the past, what he's doing right now. Well, when you look back and you think about all those things, it's wow, God, I can trust you right now. I can trust you in the present. And so our burden for this podcast is to find practical ways to remember what God has done for us in the past. And before we get into some of those practical steps, I just want to briefly show a passage of scripture where we see the danger of forgetfulness. And over throughout the Old Testament, you'll see the story of the Exodus repeated over and over. The children of Israel coming out of Egypt, going through the Red Sea, the wilderness. And the story is repeated so much over and over. And it's like, why is this repeated over and over? And I think kind of a truth that's not explicitly stated is that rehearsing these truths, rehearsing what God has done for you in the past, can give you grace to trust him, not only in the present, but in the future. And the children of Israel really failed at this. They were so soon to forget God's goodness and what God had done for them. And in Psalm 106, verse 7, it says, "Our fathers understood not thy wonders in Egypt. They remembered not the multitude of thy mercies." And then the next couple verses talks about God's mercy and leading them out of Egypt, leading them through the Red Sea. And you would think that after God had done something so amazing like that, delivered them out of slavery, out of bondage, and led them through the Red Sea, you would think those people would never struggle again with trusting God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, verse 13, they soon forgot his works. And it's really a sobering truth that, unfortunately, many of us struggle with ourselves. And I think, honestly, one of the greatest dangers of the Christian life is to forget what God has done for us in the past.
I think amazing thing in just looking at that scripture, and obviously we've heard it so many times, is just thinking how quickly they forgot something that was so amazing.
Right.
Just thinking of all the miracles God did in Egypt, getting them out of there, like so many amazing things that you would think you wouldn't forget.
Right.
But that they did forget.
Right. Yeah. And, in our lives here and now today, we're not going to have the miracles of the 10 plagues. But all of us can think through different seasons of our life where we really struggled with something. We were at a crossroads. Are we going to let fear consume us, or are we going to live by faith? And for me as a young boy, one of the seasons of life where I was at a crossroads of fear or faith was when my dad told us we were moving from Wisconsin to South Carolina. And I mean, I'm a Wisconsin boy. I love everything Wisconsin related. All the sports teams, love the snow days, everything. Culver's. Oh yes. Anna Face reminded me about that. I love Culver's. And it's custard, not ice cream for anyone listening. But yeah, that was a really important season in my life. And all of us have those times where we can remember. And, if we can look back on those seasons of life and remember how the Lord led us through them, that's a really helpful way that we can trust God right now, in the present and in the future.
I think it grows our faith, obviously, by thanking him for what he is doing, but so many faith steps we've taken are obviously in the past and in our journey of faith, and grows our faith for today when we remember what God has done in the past. And really, we can't grow without that. We can't grow without knowing what God has done. Obviously, even starting at salvation, the first faith step that we've taken, and just really realizing that it's such an important thing in our faith journey, and it's something that maybe we don't think of too much. Obviously, just growing in faith, remembering, and just thinking of general, we forget things. So that's why God's given us, church meetings together and preaching and reading our Bible, just daily steps of growth, but realizing that also remembering what God has done in the past will grow our faith for the future and just our trust in who our God is.
Right.
And one thing I was thinking too, just in the last couple of days, it's so easy to be afraid of the future. And we were just talking about ways that we can just overcome fear. And just even in South Carolina, the last week that I've been here, first week here, There's been some scary weather coming, or so everyone says. But I guess there's an ice storm that's coming the next couple days, and us Northerners just think it's rather hilarious how everybody's kind of just freaking out about everything that is coming. And there's so many fears that you can have for the future, but I think you can just, one practical way to grow in not being afraid is to remember what God has done in the past and how he's sustained us up into this point. And why wouldn't we trust him for the future? Because he's brought us to this point for however many years we've been saved, and he's been every day directing, and you can trust him.
He's got don't want to say this irreverently, but the Lord has a full resume. He's proved himself over and over and over to be faithful. If we look back and see all these things God has done for us, how could we not trust him for the future?
Right.
And so we've talked about remembering. So, Anna Faith, what's the practical step to going back and remembering?
Right. Well, there's a couple things that you can do, and obviously there's probably more than we'll even mention today, but we really wanted to just focus on just one or two specific things that you can walk away from this podcast and you can say, okay, I can do that. And how do you remember? You write things down. So just thinking of journaling, which maybe you hear that word and you kind of get scared, and that's normally me. I have probably 5 to 10 journals that I've started through the years that I've only gotten the first 20 pages written on. So, but we're just challenging you to write down what God is teaching you right now, because later on you can pull that journal out and remember what God has been teaching you, and that can be such a faith building for you and encouraging for you. So that would be one thing that you could do. Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times when we talk about journaling, we get so caught up with like the here and now, writing what's going on right now. And that is journaling. But I think another aspect is, hopefully you do have some journals, even if it is only 10 or 15 pages. Pull out those old journals from 5 years ago. Like, I love going back, whenever I'm faced with a decision of fear or faith, I love going back and reading my journals of, times where I was at a crossroads, like when we moved from Wisconsin to South Carolina, because rehearsing those truths, like, now for going back and looking at the move from Wisconsin to South Carolina, it's like, what? That was nothing to be worried about. And just seeing how the Lord has proved himself faithful, but even how he's grown you. So journaling, yes, journal the here and present, but go back and read the old journals to see how much you've grown and to see how faithful the Lord has been to you over and over.
Right. And some of you may be going through deep trials, and especially I've learned, we all know that you learn so much through the trials, and God uses those times in such an amazing way in your life. So I don't know, like through the good times and the bad times, write down what God's doing for you, because that's going to be such an encouragement to yourself and maybe to somebody else that would pick up your journal one day and read it. Right. I know my grandpa, before he passed, he put together a book from my grandma's life. And a lot of that was journaling that she had journaled for different years of her life, and he had compiled all of that and put it in a book. And it's been such an encouragement to my family and so many others that have read it. And you just never know how God's going to use something tiny in your life to encourage somebody else.
Right. Yep. And I don't know when you're listening to this podcast, but for us right now, it's still January of 2026, new year. Everyone's talking about the New Year's resolution, but like, start small. Start with something tangible, very practical. When I was younger, my dad, who was Bible teacher, pastor, coach, everything, he would have us write a week in review. And the first paragraph was like, write about your highlight of the week, some like the favorite part of your week. Whether it was something you did, somewhere you went, something you ate. Okay, like just fun things, like highlight of the week. And then the second paragraph was a spiritual blessing from the week. Something, some theme or some truth about God that really stood out to you. Something the Lord was teaching you. And then the third paragraph was your regret from the last week. Something you were disappointed in, how you handled yourself, something you did. And then the last paragraph, the fourth paragraph, was your goals for the next week. And, like, do that one time a week. That's what we would do, one time a week. So set aside your Saturday morning or something and write a week in review to be like your journal. Start small with something like that. And then, as you grow and even set aside more time for journaling, you can expand on that. But I think that would be a very practical way to, again, trying to get down to the bottom line of how can I trust God right now? Well, I can remember what God has done for me in the past. I'm writing down truths that will come back to bless me 5 years down from the road. I can trust him because God has been faithful to me in the past. And so journaling is a very practical way to remember God's goodness to us.
So as we conclude, just thinking of these specific things that we've mentioned today, either for you, if it's you need to go get a journal so you can start journaling, then do that. If you have a journal, find a time, make it very clear, write down a time that you're going to go and journal, whether it's a daily journal, a weekly journal, even every 2 weeks, just something that you know that you can follow through. And those 4 little things that Boogie was sharing, if that's something that you want to do, write those down and start journaling those different things that God's doing in your life, or finding a time to read a past journal. Whatever it is, we just encourage you to remember what God's done. Let's consider what great things God's done for us so we can serve him. And this coming year, remembering what he's done this past year. And so we can just give him all the glory for what he has done in our lives. So as you continue your faith journey, remember, faith doesn't just talk, faith walks.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Generation Podcast. If you've been blessed or helped in any way by this episode or any other episodes, please consider sharing what God has done in your life. Your testimony could be exactly what someone else needs to take their own step out of the boat. To share your testimony, please visit thegeneration.org/testimony. That's THEEgeneration.org/testimony.